All right, read it on. It spread southward and westward from the Caribbean to Mexico and along the coastline of America, South America, to Cape Horn, where the Pacific, Atlantic and Pacific Oceans meet. In Salah. Page 35 part of this lesson? No. I already read that. All right. Page 36. It was in Mexico that Europeans made their strongest effort to keep Africans apart from Native Americans. Black men far outnumbered their women and so sought Indian wives. Boom. So extensive was the contact between red and black people that Spanish law prohibited the two races from living together or marrying. As early as 1523, Hernando Cortez was given a royal order to keep Indians in their villages apart from Africans at all costs. This was only 7 years after Venice, Italy isolated its Jews in the first ghetto in history. So it's comparing to how they separated the Jews as well. I wonder why. I wonder why they talked about the Jews here. Racial mixing was so common in Mexico that it became hard to tell by skin color who was free and who was a slave. From the time of Columbus, the gravest threat to European domination of the Western Hemisphere came from the outlaw communities of former slaves. Boom! All right. In 1615, King Philip II of Spain received a letter from his Mexican colony advising him that division of the races is an indispensable element in controlling his colonies. White man's a slick bastard, man. Not only did Mexico's Maroon experience prepare its dark people and mixed races to march to independence, but it cast up a leader in Vicente Guerrero, a black Indian. Born in Ixtla in 1782, Guerrero's parents were of mixed European, Indian, and African stock. Page 54. Okay, it says under General Jackson's orders, this is Andrew Jackson, who later became president, and without a declaration of war, General Gaines marched a massive force of regular U.S. troops, Marines, and 500 Creek Indian mercenaries. His mission, as spelled out by General Jackson, was to blow up Fort Negro and restore the stolen Negroes to their rightful owners. Wow. Bold fucking crackers, man, I'll tell you. White man's the devil. All right. In December 1835, King Philip led black and red Seminoles in a raid on a U.S. plantation. This King Philip was, I believe he was a Native American. Chief Osceola led a band of murdered government. Salah. King Osceola led a band that murdered a government agent. Another Seminole column wiped out U.S. Major Francis Dade's entire relief force in the famous Dade Massacre. Before this conflict was over, the U.S. had fought its most costly Indian war, spending over $40 million and losing 1,500 soldiers and many civilians. He promised Creek mercenaries plunder, meaning captured blacks who could be sold as slaves. In 2 months, his troops seized 131 blacks, mostly women and children. When his men stormed Osceola's headquarters in 1837, the chief's personal bodyguard was captured. Of the 55 men, 52 were black. All right. Oh, now another thing that's curious here, you got a lot of people that that say, oh, mostly women, because they try to make it look like their hair growing is a Native American thing, so they'll say, oh yeah, I'm part Indian. But you got a lot of Judites that actually would specifically deny their Native American heritage. It says children, page 18, children of the black awareness of the 1960s have rarely cared to mention an Indian ancestry because this might be seen as a denial of their African origins and the value of blackness. Because remember, if you're being taught this whole Africa thing, you don't want to, the most glory is as pure African as you can claim you are. All right? Esau, a gangster. Let's see, the white man's a fucking gangster. Look at this. It says, page 21. The English newcomers sent to Roanoke Island in 1584 by Sir Walter Raleigh are a case in point. When a silver cup allegedly disappeared, the Roanoke men roared out of their tiny enclave, muskets and torches in hand, to destroy their Indian neighbors' villages and crops. When the Spanish Armada severed the settlement's connection to British ports, it withered and died. Roanoke Island became famous as the Lost Colony. In light of this unacceptable object lesson for children, most school texts prefer to begin U.S. history with another colony, Captain John Smith's Jamestown, Virginia, founded in 1607. Smith sailed with an overload of failed aristocrats and settled on land owned by the Algonquin Confederacy. Iron revolver in hand, Captain Smith ordered his lazy gentlemen to work or starve. Time and again, the English were rescued from starvation through the generosity of the Algonquin Confederacy, which provided corn and bread. The foreigners responded by refusing to share their European agricultural tools with the Indians, and violence soon broke out. Why wouldn't it break out? We're fucking saving your ass from starving and you don't share shit with us. No wonder some historians decided that U.S. history did not begin until the arrival of the hardworking pilgrims aboard the Mayflower of 1620. So in other words, all the scumbags that came over here from Europe were so fucking lazy and worthless to talk about. You know what I mean? So the ones that actually worked were the Mayflower motherfuckers. Pilgrims. All right. Page 26. It began with Columbus. For the people of the Americas, the arrival of Columbus was hardly a blessing. On his first day, October 12, 1492, the explorer wrote in his diary, "I took some of the natives by force." This is Christopher Columbus, who you motherfuckers have a day to celebrate, I believe, in October every year. He later found the original inhabitants to be tractable, peaceable, and concluded that there is not in the world a better nation. You know, there's not in the world a better nation. That's talking about Israel, right? That the Most High, if he says that there's not a better nation in the world, he's talking about Israel. Columbus was also talking about Israel. He started by shipping 10 chained Arawak men and women to Seville, Spain. When he loaded 1,100 Taino men and women aboard 4 Spanish ships, the crowding and the stormy Atlantic crossing took a fearful toll. Only 300 survived. Seville became the slave capital of Spain. A few years later, Bishop Las Casas, who had witnessed countless Indian massacres by his fellow Spaniards, blamed greed for the horrors. They killed them because they wanted to be rich and have much gold, which is their sole aim. Las Casas concluded that in the New World, Spaniards had become devils and the Indians were the only true Christians. He pointed out that Indians died off by the thousands from slavery and European diseases. Forced labor in Spanish mines and in the Americas was so harsh that the average worker died before he was 26. This is working for you so-called fucking white people are gangsters, man. The first Africans brought to the New World by European slavers probably arrived in April 1502 aboard the ship that brought the new governor of Hispaniola, Nicolas de Ovando. The next the two peoples... Oh, no, I already read this. Oh, yeah, I shouldn't have read it before. I was supposed to read it now. All right, let's see. All right, page 42. Still dealing with Esau's gangsterism. Esau's the so-called white man, by the way. Page 42 and 46. Okay. Others were invaded because they were engaged in business with whites. In businesses whites sought to control. Black Indians in Venezuela in 1728, for example, ran a successful shipping operation Europeans wanted. Led by a man named Juan Andre Sode, they carried cacao from Spanish merchants in the Uruguay Valley to Dutch merchants on Curacao about 150 miles away. Philip V of Spain awarded his European friends a monopoly of this trade, placing them on a collision course with the business ran by André Sode. In 1732, Spain sent out 250 soldiers, including 150 men conscripted from Indian and African slaves, to challenge the dark businessmen of André Sode. He maneuvered his army into battle with such skill that the slave and native soldiers deserted the European command. André Sode's sharpshooters' musket fire then brought down all but 44 European soldiers, but Spain had not given up. It sent 1,500 troops after André Sode, and he had to slip off to Curacao to save his life. However, it did take Spain another 5 years to eliminate their dark business competitors in the Yaracuy Valley. Colonial law often threw whites into jail for trading with the outlawed Maroons communities on their borders. Fucking white man's a gangster, man. Fuck Tekashi 6ix9ine. Fucking white man's a real gangster. Christianity was commonly practiced, including elaborate marriage and baptism ceremonies that drew large crowds. In 1657, life in Palmares was still relatively peaceful, but the new rulers of Brazil, the Portuguese, decided it must be destroyed. Finally, in 1694, the invaders brought in an army of Brazilian Indians called Paulistas to lead the massive assault on the Republic of Palmares. Some 6,000 Paulistas, supported by Portuguese soldiers and weapons, laid siege to Palmares for 42 days. Fucking gangster. White man's a piece of shit. Alright, let's see. Page 110. In 1690, a Connecticut law forbade red or black people from walking beyond town limits without a pass. So the question is, if we're not the same people, why are the same laws dehumanizing Native Americans are the same laws that dehumanize so-called African Americans? Why? Like all the other fucking people that came off the boats from Europe and all the other people that came, they weren't treated this way. Why the Native Americans and the so-called blacks together? Because the children of Judah and the children of Ephraim were oppressed together. Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts had laws imposing a 9 o'clock curfew on Africans and Native Americans. So explain that shit if we're not the same people, man. All right, now a couple things too that stick out in this book is Esau's hiding history. So like I'm looking for it. Okay. In the smoking ruins, the U.S. invaders found 270 dead. This is at Fort Negro. 3 uninjured and 64 wounded, some fatally. The U.S. public heard nothing about this massacre for 20 years. In 1837, Congressman William J. broke the story. So we would have never knew about the slaughter at Fort Judah. All right, so with that, I hope you learned something. This is Black Indians by William Lorenz Katz. This is a classic book for Israelites. It doesn't flat out say that the so-called Native Americans or Hispanics are Israelites, but it shows that we shared a common bond with the so-called black slaves that came to this country. Now, if we were about military strategy or trying to better ourselves, we would have gotten with the motherfuckers that had the power, which is the Europeans. But we specifically had an allegiance with the slaves because they were our people, and you notice the same laws and the same treatment that they gave the so-called natives, they gave the so-called Africans, which were really the Israelites. All right, and in some cases they try to use that Willie Lynch shit, But with that, I'm gonna say all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of GMS. Salutations to you brothers throughout the 4 corners of the earth, teaching the truth sincerely. To you Israelite foreigners, come back home to the truth. To those that passed away serving the Lord, the dead in Yahweh shall arise first.